My name is Lennon VanderDoes. This is my, life story. Super thankful that I'm able to film this. I'm hoping eventually maybe my kids or grandkids could look at this. I know it'd be way cool if I could see my parents when they were super young. I hope I'm not like super boring then, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, just wanted to start off, talking about my childhood. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, out on the East Coast. Was born to great parents, really love them. When I think of my childhood, I just had a happy one, I was just a little kid. I'm the oldest in my family, right? So it was just me for a little while. And I just remember, I had a really good imagination, I guess. And so my early days were spent me just making up games and me playing them by myself, which I guess kind of sounds sad, but I was having a good time. I was never really sad. I don't know. I would just I remember we grew up on a house that was kind of on the side of a lonely highway, and I would just, we had a big tree in the backyard. I like to think he was my friend. So that sounds kind of sad now that I'm talking about it, but you know what? It was a good life. And then, as I had siblings born, I got to spend time with them. It was just I feel like my childhood was just a good childhood that every kid would want. I had loving parents, and they were always there for me. And so because of that, I just had lots of good experiences, similar to a lot of other kids, I'm sure. So that was kind of the start of my life, I guess you could say. One thing that I remember in particular as a kid is the season of fall. I don't know why it sticks with me. I think it was just something about fall I just really like. My mom got super into it, and so I'd just come home from school and there would all of a sudden just be scented candles everywhere, which were super nice. And I just love the leaf changing. In Delaware, the leaves, they just turn into the most amazing colors. And so it's really cool to kind of go around and look at all the different colors that are around, and all the leaves would fall. My siblings would always have this big thing where we would jump in them. It's not like everybody does that, but it's just as a kid, it was super fun. I remember this one time in particular, I was having a race with my sister to who was going to get in there first, and I ended up getting there, which was awesome. She was angry about that, kind of threatened me with a baseball bat. I think she ran at me with that. I think we have that on video, so hopefully that's still around. But anyways, yeah, fall was a really cool season. Again, it's just something about it as a kid. I just when I'm now, we're going through rough times, or whatever, I think back to just fall time as a kid. It just seems like a peaceful kind of memory there. Me and school kind of have a love-hate relationship, I guess you could say. When I was a kid, I was super excited to start school, kindergarten, I knew it was coming up. I was really happy about it. And then it happened. I went, had a good time. And then the next day, when I was supposed to go again, I was just kind of I don't think that it's for me, it was fun. I'm glad that I went. But I think that's good, and my mother explained to me that that's not exactly how school works, and that I actually had to go. I think that's when I developed some not so nice feelings about school, and that kind of continued. I was really shy as a kid too, so I didn't want to leave my mom. I loved my mom, and so I would actually make her walk me as far as she could go in the school, and then I would walk backwards so that I could see her walking away. And that's kind of how that was for a little while. But yeah, when I think of the good times of school, definitely I think of high school, right? Because no one likes middle school. That's awful for everybody. I don't think anybody has a good middle school. If anyone peaks in middle school, their life, I'm sorry for you, because that's awful. But high school, though, was fun. I feel like I just really kind of was learning who I was, One story that comes to mind, though, when I was in the 5th grade, I remember skateboarding was like a super popular thing. And so for me, I was kind of like, I don't know, just wanted to fit in, I guess. And so I went to the popular kids and I was like, just so you guys know, I happen to be a super good skateboarder. And they were like, what? No way. What kind of tricks can you do? And they asked me all these like intense questions that only like a skateboarder could know. But I was prepared because I had like a video game that was about skateboarding. So I knew all the verbiage. So I was able to like lie a lot. So that was built on a lie. My friends were all built on lies for like 6 months and they never even knew. And so during that time, it actually worked out because I taught myself how to skateboard. And I wasn't great or anything, but like I could do stuff. And so honestly, by the time that they actually saw me skateboard, I kind of could. And so I guess I got away with that one for a long time. So that's interesting. But yeah, school was for the most part fine. I wasn't ever the best student, but my teachers would often pass me because of my personality, they said. So I don't know if that's a good thing, but I can't complain. I can't complain. So in terms of like athletics in high school, I was definitely kind of a scrawny kid, not this huge man that you see before you today. But I decided I wanted to do something my freshman year because I was seriously like still 4 foot something, I think, and I weighed like maybe 100 pounds. And so I decided to start swimming because I always loved swimming. Swimming was fun, right? I didn't have a pool growing up, so whenever I could go swimming, it was like the best thing ever. So I started swimming. I was terrible at it. Like I was one of those really awkward looking kids that when you would swim where their face was out of the water and they just looked terrible. But, you know, I started learning. And I mean, my freshman year, I got to the point where I was decent. Luckily, they kept everyone on the team anyways, so it wasn't like I was going to get cut. But they started actually putting me in events. And I'd swim like the long distance ones, which was miserable. But it was good for me, you know. And then just as the years went on, just the more time I went into it, I just got better at it. And it ended up being like my junior year was where I really actually started getting good. And that's where I learned how to do the butterfly stroke really well. Like the butterfly stroke, if that's still around in the future, I wouldn't be surprised because it's awful. I hope they like outlaw that or something. But it's basically you, yeah, I mean, it's just terrible. Your arms do this really weird thing and you're like coming out and the arms are like coming back in and it's just like, why is that necessary? But I learned how to do that because I had a dream that I was swimming perfect butterfly on the couch. That happened. But then ever since that, I was just really good at it. And my coach put me in an event one time. I took first place in that. And then he just kept putting me in that. And then I became like the team butterfly. Like I had the fastest butterfly time on the team, which was cool, but at the same time awful because then my practices became much more intense. Like they made me practice a lot harder and a lot more, and that wasn't any fun. And I had to do butterfly. When everyone else did other things, I always had to do butterfly. And so it was not the most fun, but I became stronger because of it, I guess, and a better swimmer. So I mean, swimming was cool because I never considered myself athletic, really, but I always wanted to be, and that kind of put me into that place where I was in really, really good shape, and I was actually really good at it. So that was cool. One memory that I have as a kid that's actually super meaningful to me is my relationship with, I guess, the Pacific Coast, or I guess Washington. That's where my dad's from originally, and so we'd go there. And I just fell in love with it as a kid. I mean, when I first went there and just seeing the mountains, like Delaware has no mountains or anything like that. And don't get me wrong, Delaware's a pretty place with the trees and everything like that, but it's just not, there's something about the West that's just enchanting with the way that the mountains are, having snow like year round, just like on mountains and things like that just was like a cool idea for me. And just, I guess, having the family out there, but also the water that's everywhere there too. I mean, for me, that's just the place that I think of when I think of like the place that I just want to be. I just think of Washington. And And so that's probably like, I feel like every kid deserves to have a place where they just want to go all the time. And that was me for Washington. Like I remember feeling like I wasn't homesick ever. I was like Washington sick. Like I just wanted to go back to Washington. And I got to live there eventually for a little while, so that was cool. But as a kid, it was just like the most perfect place, like that Seattle area, and just there's a place that had really good donuts, which seems random, but I'm talking like these donuts were like huge. They were massive, so that's pretty cool. So when I think about, I guess, how my family happened, I just think of my parents' story because it's pretty cool. Like I said, my dad grew up on the West Coast in the Seattle area, and he served his mission in the Philadelphia mission, and so he served in Delaware. And that's where my mom grew up, actually. She grew up in a Catholic family, and my dad served his LDS mission, right? And so they actually ran into each other because my dad's companion was not following the rules and was doing a bunch of stuff he shouldn't have been doing. So my dad was like specially assigned to him to help him out. And one of these days that my, dad's companion was kind of like goofing off, he was like, hey, we need to go to this family. They're pretty cool. And my dad was just kind of following along, trying to figure out what to do. And that's where he met my mom, who had no interest really in joining the church. I think she just had a crush on my dad's companion. And so that was kind of an awkward beginning, I guess. But my dad just kind of really wanted to be a good missionary, and so he just kind of kept trying to share the gospel any way that he could. Like he would open up his scriptures and try to share things there. And eventually my mom just kind of started listening, and she said that the message just kind of felt familiar to her. And she knew that these things that were being taught were true. And it took her a long time. I mean, there were lots of dramatic things that had to happen, right? Like she was raised in a Catholic family, so her mom was not happy about her joining the church or anything like that. But she struggled a lot, and she kept being persistent that this is what she wanted to do. And it was really cool because not only did she join the church, but her whole family ended up joining the church. They were all baptized. And that was because of her example. I mean, she was the one that was spearheading it. Even her mom was baptized. And she was the one that, had such a rough time with it. And so I just think it's cool how that happened together. My dad being called over there, meeting my mom. Like, there's a legacy there that I am just honored to have come from. So I feel like I was raised with some really good values. When I think about it, I mean, I think every kid is annoyed at some point with their parents and what their parents are wanting them to do. But, I mean, we were raised with good ethics, like work ethics. Like we always had to, have chores that we were supposed to do. That was always like the worst thing in the world. But looking back, like it's good. Like I'm glad that my parents made me take responsibility for cleaning things and that we couldn't do other things until things were cleaned. And we had like chores at the table. And I feel like I was always kind of like rushing those things, maybe not doing the best that I could at those, which is maybe why I'm not the best cleaner now. But they had all of, my parents were great because they had all the right ideas and they presented them to us like, this is how you want to be successful. This is how you want to be a good person. This is like what makes a good person. But they didn't force us to do any of those things. They just said, this is our rules, right? So they did make us clean, but it was ultimately up to us, like the quality of that. Which, I mean, that alone seems like a simple thing, but I feel like they were like that for all of the things. So like scripture reading, for example. We always read scriptures, right? But they struggled with us not always being the most attentive while we were reading. And so I could have gotten a lot more out of that, but they were doing everything they could to give me a positive experience with it. Which is what I like, is they really respected agency there. I mean, they were like, this is how we're going to do things in our house. Like, we are going to read the scriptures. But they left it up to us to, actually benefit from it. And so I feel like that was just a good principle to learn, that, I felt the love from them, that they wanted us to be successful, but they also respected. I don't even know if they realized that they were doing this. But they left it up to us if we were actually going to take advantage of those opportunities. So that's how I think about it when I look back on those things. But yeah, just raised in a culture of love. Of course, with all families, I have a big family. I have 5 younger siblings, so there's always bound to be fighting and arguments and things like that, and hurtful things said. But when it came down to it, it was always very clear that they loved us and that my parents were doing everything they could to show love and to be good parents. And it's something that I realize now when I'm not with them. But every time I go back and live with them, it's something that I definitely appreciate. Like every time I'm with them, even just for a couple days, or I get to talk to them, you know. I definitely appreciate the relationship I have with them now as an adult. But it's cool looking back and seeing how much they actually tried to give us a good life. There's definitely times that come to mind that I'm embarrassed of when I think of how I acted with my parents. I mean, there was a time in my life where I kind of went through a rebellious phase, and won't get so much into that, but I will say that there were times where I definitely hurt my parents because of my actions, especially just with like lying to them, not being honest to them, but more so just saying hurtful things when it wasn't necessary. Like I remember this one time, you know, as I was getting ready to graduate, I think it was just like a power struggle thing. Like I was becoming an adult almost, technically speaking, an adult, like by legal age. And I was like excited about that, and I wanted just the power from that. And my parents were just like, I'm there first, so they were like, what the heck is wrong with this kid? And I was just a jerk a lot of times. Like I remember my mom one time was like, oh man, like I was just listening to music. I had headphones in and everything, and just kind of being isolated. And my mom went to ask me if I wanted a sandwich, but I couldn't hear her, so she was like yelling, like, hey, what do you want? And I like pulled out my headphones and I was like, what? And I just like yelled at her. And she was just like asking me if I wanted a sandwich, like she was trying to serve me, and I was being not the best. I just remember like she just kind of started crying softly, and I felt like the worst person in the world. Like I just felt awful. There's another time that comes to mind where I was on a road trip with my family. We had been with each other for a while and frustrated, but I was being a punk, and this doesn't excuse that. But yeah, I think we were just with each other too much at that point. And my dad, he works in HR, so he's obviously good with people. Well, I don't know if being in HR necessarily means that, but I like to think my dad's good with people. But we were just not getting along. We were having an argument that wasn't going anywhere. And I was like, Dad, how are you so good at your job? You suck at communicating with people. Just like trying to be as hurtful as possible. My dad definitely took the higher road. He threw an apple at my face, so that shut me up pretty quick. And I learned my lesson. There's another time where I was sassing my mom, and she like had a little hose thing, and she squirted me with a water hose. So again, my parents are really good at getting me to shut up when I need to be shut up. Yeah, so when it comes to my family, it's definitely important to me to know that they know that I love them. I mean, they know that for sure. I spend time going out of my way to talk to them, and I mean, my siblings not so much. I wish I could talk to them more. I feel like it's just awkward when we have phone conversations sometimes. We don't really know what to say. But when I'm there, I feel like we have good quality time, and I do look forward to the future where we're all a bit older and in our adult lives together. It can feel kind of lonely when you're the adult kid. And now my sister, you know, she's recently got married and she has a kid now, so I guess they're there as well. So I'm not the only one, but I definitely am super happy with my family. I mean, I just feel blessed. I wouldn't want to change any of them, even though I might have told them that. I am happy with who I was put with, and we're not perfect, any of us, but it's good. As far as my future family, I definitely want them to know that my childhood was not perfect. Me growing up, my adulthood isn't perfect. There's lots of things that aren't perfect about me, but I want to provide the same kind of love that my parents did to my kids and my grandkids that my grandparents did for me. That's just something that's important to me, because I feel like love is really such an important thing, and it's not hard to give that, I don't think. So music was always super important for me. I really do love music. Always have. Like, just something about it. There's so much emotion into it. It can make you feel so much. It can connect you to things when you don't have words to explain how you're feeling. Music can kind of fill all those spaces. Just the way that a chord can sound, or the way that someone's voice can resonate with you, it just really can complete the picture there. And so that's why I was always attracted to it, I guess. And I was raised with good taste in music. My name's Lennon, so that kind of worked out from the beginning. I always had good influences. Was obsessed with the Beatles to the point where, like, because my mom obviously has a Beatles thing, because, again, my name is Lennon. I was going to be Lennon McCartney, but my dad put his foot down on that one. But, yeah, I mean, I was just, like, always asking her about the Beatles, and she was like, all right, you got to stop. So that's how obsessed I was with them. And then I just anything that I could listen to, I would love it. I just felt, it's just almost like a high when you're listening to good music. So I wanted to be a part of that, naturally. And I started actually drumming, because I guess, just had rhythm in me. My dad's a drummer. And so I just started drumming, and I remember being in class, and it was like the band thing, right? So, like, you were just on a snare drum. And then this one kid did a really cool beat, and he was like, can anyone else do that? No one else in the class could do it, but I could do it. And then I just practiced more and more until I did it better than he did. And then I actually, definitely became the better, I guess, drummer in the class, to the point where my band teacher put me on a drum set, and I got to play that in concerts rather than just the snare drum thing, which was great, because when it was just the snare drum thing, I'd always go off script, and my teacher was not super happy always. And I was like, dude, give me a break. But that's kind of how that started. It shifted into guitar when, actually, my uncle, like, I was always just fascinated with the guitar, I guess. I always thought it was super cool. But my uncle had a guitar, and I just, like, one day just kind of strummed it a little bit with my hand, and just it played, and I was like, I could probably learn how to do this. And then I had a friend who started playing the guitar as well, and he showed me his stuff, and it was just super cool, and I was like, I want to do that. Like, that's amazing. And so I had a guitar. It had 2 strings on it, and so I just play stuff on the 1 string, and I was awful. But I just started learning, and then finally I got my first guitar. It was an electric guitar. Again, just sounded terrible, but I just kept working at it until I eventually learned how to play notes, then I learned how to do cool things, and I just kept going until I would learn more things, and I kind of had like a library of things I could do with the guitar. Then I would learn chords, and then I just kept learning chords. Then I learned more things with chords, more complex chords, and I actually started becoming good at playing the guitar. This was kind of in middle school, and yeah, I mean, it was still kind of a beginner level, but then as I just kept going, I actually became good at it, and people were impressed with the things that I could do. And then I kind of worked in singing into that, right, because obviously that's a big part of it, like being able to express like how you're feeling. If you're able to sing, like, it just makes it a lot easier. I was not good at first either. I have a unique voice. It's a higher voice. I'm a pretty high tenor, and not a lot of people have that kind of a range, and so as a kid, when I was going through puberty and everything, I was just not good. But then I started getting, like, I found my voice. I could stay on pitch, I could stay in tune. And but then I just kind of kept getting better from there. So that was kind of like how that all started, is just I started out, and then it just kind of evolved. Yeah, so as I was in college, I definitely got better at that talent. I just played a lot. Every time I would go on a date, I would usually end with me playing the guitar, which is maybe like lame or cliche or whatever, but I didn't care. And because of that, like, people would say things like, hey, you're good, you should get better. Well, they wouldn't say that I should get better, but it encouraged me to get better, because I knew that I could get better. And so realizing that I was good at something, it made me want to keep going. And as I did that, like, I focused more on, like, singing and what I could do to improve my singing and how to be a better singer. And as I did that, I mean, things just started working out, and more people were kind of attracted to my talents, and I had more opportunities. I was able to play at other cool places. So that's kind of how that developed. Like, I just had opportunities open up because I continued to develop my talents. One of my favorite opportunities in life was definitely being able to play in a band with other people. It started out when I was in college in Idaho. What had happened was there was this girl that I was sort of seeing. I was more just friends with her. But she was really good at music. I was good at music, and we would just, like, jam out sometimes. And one time her brother walked in, and he saw us jamming out, and he joined us. And we just started, having a jam session. It was super fun. And he was in a band at the time that he wasn't happy with. And so me and him just started jamming out more and more, and we started this little duo thing. And he's like, hey, man, we should... He was from Seattle himself. And so he's like, going back there because there's an interesting trimester thing from the college that I was going to where you would have a semester off. And so he was like, I'm going to Seattle, and I have friends that are really good at music there. So I moved there as well, and we just started a band, and we had some really cool opportunities. One of those being playing at Seattle Battle of Bands. And that was such a cool thing because it's something that I always wanted to do. And I remember being there, and we had worked really hard. The musicians that we played with were incredibly talented. We had a really amazing drummer, really amazing bass player. I like to think I'm pretty good at guitar, and I could hold a note. And then my other friend was a good guitarist as well. And so we just spent a lot of time putting these things together. The whole part of it, everything about it was just really fun. There was no part of it that I didn't enjoy. And so then for that concert, it was just really cool because we were able to headline that show, so we went last. And then we just had a really good crowd there. And because of that, we were able to win as well. And I just remember, they hooked us up to the PA system, and it was just a really good system. And we just started out, one of the songs was a little bit more of a rock song. And it was just so much power in the room. And to just know that I was behind that I was the one playing those chords, and that it was coming out, and that we were all together, it was just the coolest thing. Definitely a memory that I'll remember for a long time, one of the highs of life. Yeah, so when I think of continuing my music, it's definitely something that's important to me, right? I understand the implications of a musician. I understand that there's, of all the people that have talents and skills, the percentage that actually get somewhere with it is not a lot. And that's not really my thing. I'm not trying to get to a place where that's all that I have to do, that I can just be a professional musician. I mean, that would be awesome, of course, but it's not like I have unrealistic expectations about that. I just want to be able to keep creating. All of us have something in us that wants us to create something. Some people, I guess they're really good at being accountants, and it's creating really good spreadsheets or whatever. I kind of feel bad for those people, I guess. But hey, it works for you. But I'm just so thankful that my desire is to create music. Some people it's art. I really respect art a lot. I can't do it at all. But some people, they just need to create art. I feel the same way with music. I just always need to keep creating. As I do that, I hope that I'll just continue to get better in my songwriting. It'll be more in depth, more versatile, that I'll continue to increase my skills, and that I'll have more opportunities come up because of that. Right now I've been recording the highest quality that I ever have before, and I hope that just keeps getting better, that I can look back on those and say, man, those were good, but I mean, these things that I'm working on now are way better. I just want to keep improving and progressing because that desire I have to create is so important to me. So even if it's not something that I do for a career, I would love to, I can't not do it. I have to keep going. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about dating because I feel like I have some fun stories from that. First of all, for this, I guess I wanted to share, I was not always the ladies' man that you see before you today, again. No, but I did have real struggles in high school. I mean, I never really had anything work out for me until I was a junior. I just don't know what it was. I mean, I had the long hair thing going on, which wasn't too attractive, and I was again barely over 100 pounds. So I didn't really have a lot of people that were interested in me. And rejection hurts, man. When you're in middle school, you have a crush on somebody, you think they're the love of your life because they're kind of nice to you and they're super pretty, and then you talk to them, and people are weird in middle school and even high school, and they find out that you like them, and then they just act super weird around you. And I hated that. That always happened though. It was a pattern of I would really like a girl, and I would try to and I'd get good friends with her, and she would talk to me a lot, and then she would find out that I had a thing for her because everyone always tells them, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut about it, I guess. And then they would just act super weird. So that was super sad. But I remember when that turned around, I just got a haircut, which I guess made me look better. I guess that's what matters in the world. But yeah, I was at a steak dance, and there was a girl there that we were all oh, we need to ask her. She's really pretty. And I asked her to dance, which was cool. She said yes, and I thought that was cool. But then she actually came back to me after the thing was over, asked me to dance again, and she asked for my phone number. And I was how do I even react to this? I don't know. I don't even know what to say right now. I got nervous and forgot to give her my area code, but it's all good. And I think that's something that I wanted to focus on, is like, I feel like my experiences with dating have like served to help me like learn from it, right? So like that first girl, that was super awkward. I didn't know how to handle that. And then the next girl I dated, it was also not great. But I like learned lessons as I went along, like how we're supposed to treat people and like how to not be super attached, you know, how to just kind of chill out and let things happen. That's important. And it's not something that you always know how to do. So I feel like I've just been blessed with the experiences that I've had when it comes to dating, in terms of like the lessons that I've learned from them, how I can be a gentler person maybe if it's time to like, you know, let someone down, like how to do that in the easy way and not be a jerk about it. Because I've had lessons learned where I like maybe was not the nicest, and I don't want to make anyone feel bad. But I had to learn that the hard way a little bit. But I think, again, like my experiences there have just kind of helped me be a better person. So I definitely wanted to share some of the stories that I've had, because I have had some really interesting stories of dating. I mean, I went to BYU, Idaho. That's like everybody dates everybody there. And I was just down with it. This was before my mission. And so I went on a lot of dates. And yeah, because of that, there were also some interesting ones that I went on. One that I would like to share. I went on a date with a girl, and it was fine. We went to Grand Teton National Park, which was awesome. I love the mountains. I think I've expressed that. And so that was really fun. But I just kind of realized, like, just not really interested. Like, she's cool. But then the next day, she invited me over to her house to watch a movie. And I was like, yeah, like, we'll go. I'll just make sure she knows that, like, I'm just a friend here. I'm not interested in really anything else. So I had a plan of how I was going to do that. Well, I actually didn't really have a plan. I just knew that I should do that. Like, I should let her know, and just by my actions, I guess, that this isn't really going anywhere, but we can be friends. So I get there. There's two options for couches. There's a really long one and then the really tiny one. I go for the tiny one. Here's my logic. I'm thinking that if I go for the tiny one, she's not going to want to sit next to me, because there's just like I feel like it's kind of obvious, like, don't sit next to me, this is too small for two people. Didn't get the hint, and she sat like right next to me, pretty much like on top of me, because it was such a small couch. So that was super awkward, and I was like, this is not starting well. And then she kept kind of doing things that made me uncomfortable, and I was trying to give off signals of like not feeling it. Like, she would like rest her head on my shoulder. And so what I would do then is like lean forward, you know. I feel like that gives you a signal of like, probably don't put your head on my shoulder. And then she would like scratch my back, and she was like, is that ticklish? And I was like, yes, which is a lie. Everybody loves that. That's the best thing. But I was like, yeah, no, it's ticklish. I hate that. Again, you should probably think like strike two at this point. Probably like get the picture, but it's okay. And then she kept asking me if I like wanted a blanket. I was like, I'm really warm. It was like November in Rexburg, so it was like negative 12 degrees. It was not warm. And I asked her like, give me water whenever she would like lean her head on my shoulder and stuff, and she just wasn't picking up what I was putting down. So I feel like I'm a nice person. I don't know how to let people down easily or at all. So I kind of just didn't do the best thing, kids and grandkids, which was kind of just ignore her. Don't do that. It's mean, and you'll run into the problems that I ran into, where basically she kept trying to like, she would just be places. Like, I'd go to there's this like big like auditorium thing in Rexburg. It's called the Eye Center, and I would go there, and like she would just find me there. How do you find someone there? It's huge. It's like a huge conference center. But she would just be right there behind me, so that was scary. And then like she was like follow me and stuff, and like out of there we were talking, and she's like, oh, when are we gonna hang out again? And I was like, I know. And she's like, really? You know? Then why haven't you answered my texts? And I was like, I've been so busy. Help. So that was just a rough situation. So my advice is like, if you're not feeling it with someone, just have that conversation with them. Don't lead them on. I don't think I was leading her on, but me ignoring wasn't helping the situation. But anyways, got worse. One night I got a text from a random number that was like, "Are we still on for tonight?" And I was like, "Who is this?" And they're like, "This is awkward because this is our second date." And I was like, "I would have remembered that. And I would probably have your number saved in my phone." By the way, I don't know if you're still going to have phones, grandkids, when you're watching this, or if it's going to be like I'm curious to see what it's going to be like. Anyways, we have phones these days, and they get text messages on them. I just want this to be relevant for you. Anyways, so I was getting these messages. They were getting really creepy, like, let's go for a drive. Like, we planned on going for a drive, and we totally talked about doing this. And I was like, "I don't know who you are." And they kept not like answering that question. Like, I asked them who they were like 5 times, and they always like went around it. And so that scared me. And then it turned out I looked outside, and there was like this van there. And I was like, what the heck? It was like it's like a horror movie where you're like, "Don't go outside." I went outside because I had to see what it was. And yeah, it ended up being this chick. She rented a car, and she was like, "This is what I have to do. I have to rent a car to see you. And oh, you're not answering my text messages, but you're answering this random girl." She like used her friend's phone. And I was like, and then after that, the crazy thing, after she like yelled at me for not texting her back, she was like, "Well, come on, get in the car." And I was like, no, not doing that. Okay, one more dating story. So during that time where I was playing in that band, we had Seattle Battle of the Bands. There was this girl that I met there, and we decided to go out. This was very interesting as well. So what had happened was, like, I was working at this place at the time. I needed to get my ID. We had plans to meet up at like 11 in Seattle. So I lived on a kind of like peninsula thing that was a good hour journey away from Seattle, because you would have to drive to a place and then take a ferry to Seattle. And so I had to get my photo ID taken, and I was realizing it was going to set me back because there was like a bridge closed as well, so that was going to add to the travel time. So I let her know, like, "Hey, probably not going to be there until like 12. Can we do 12? And she texted back. She was like, "Just so you know, being late is super unattractive." And I was like, whoa. Well, that's already kind of like a good start to this. But I'm like on the ferry. I'm set to arrive in the city of Seattle at 12 o'clock exactly. And then I realized the place that she wants me to go is like way further than just like right in Seattle. I don't know why I thought that I was just going to be able to get there in like 2 minutes once I got to Seattle, but it was like 20 minutes away. So when I told her that, she got very upset, and in all caps was like swearing at me and saying that she didn't have time for this, and that she had priorities and things to do. And so yeah, I was like, well, I guess this isn't happening. But it ended up happening. She was like, "Just wait there." And she like drove her car and like picked me up from the ferry place. And she was like crying, and she's like, "I wasn't crying because of you." And I was like, what is going on right now? And so that was pretty scary. I went to this place that was in the middle of nowhere. It was like this park. And it was a nice park, but it was kind of sketchy. And then she told me, she asked about my religious beliefs. I'm always about missionary opportunities. So I was like, yeah, I'm like LDS and stuff like that. And she's like, "Oh, my dad told me if I married a Mormon, he would disown me." And I was like, why is that something that you're telling me? First of all, why does your dad even know who I am? Second of all, how did you know that I was, like, why did you have a conversation with him that I was a Mormon? Because, like, this is what he said to her, like, on her way out to, like, meet me. I was like, how did you even know that? I guess Facebook. So that was interesting. And then she proceeded to tell me how it was from Facebook that she found that out, and that she had not only, I later learned that she didn't only like stalk my Facebook page. Is Facebook still a thing in the future, by the way? I'm going to be curious to know about that. But she also went on to my mom's Facebook page because she saw a picture on there of me when I was a little kid that she recognized. So that was also scary as well. So we're on like, I don't know if you guys have been keeping track, but I think we're on like 7 red flags at this point. And then she asked me if I wanted to know about her religious beliefs. Sure. She said that she believes in the Bible, but she also thinks that God is a woman and is the moon as well. So I'm just here like, what is happening right now? And very uncomfortable. And so I'm like, finally, like, it's time to leave. And we start going. And she decides to like grab my hand in a super awkward way. And I was like, what? Like, she was like holding it like this, and then she told me that I was holding hands weird. The point of sharing this is my future generations. I just want you to know how very uncomfortable I was in this situation. So if you're in uncomfortable dating situations, just know that you're not alone, because this, I kind of wanted to die. And I remember like praying to Heavenly Father and asking like, please do not make it so I have to kiss this girl, because I don't like kissing people when I don't like them. That's advice I want to give you. Don't kiss people if you don't like them. That's just mean. Don't do that. And I was like, and if this girl obviously wants to kiss me, and if I do that, never going to get rid of her, probably ever. And so I was like praying. I was like, Heavenly Father, please give me an opportunity to get out of this. And so we were driving, and I was like, you can let me out here, or you can let me out here. And she wouldn't let me out. But finally, she like stops, because I was like, oh, right here is perfect. Like, I really need to get out here. And I was like, grab my stuff. Like, I unhooked my seatbelt, grabbed my stuff from the back. I was like getting ready to go, and she like grabbed my shirt and like pulled me in, and I was like, no, it's gonna happen. But luckily it didn't. Like, she just looked at me really awkwardly, and I was able to like break away. And I believe she quoted one of my like song lyrics to me, which was super weird, if I'm remembering correctly. And then I got out of there. Okay, so real quick, I think when it comes to the lessons I've learned of going on dates with people, I think the most important thing I've learned is just respect. Honestly, we live in a world, in my day and age anyways, I hope that it's better in the future. I really do, because it's sickening how much abuse there is that's going on, and how much people are taking advantage, especially how much people are taking advantage of women and making them feel uncomfortable. No one should feel uncomfortable when they're on dates or with people. Like, it's just nobody. If you're a man or a woman, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable. And as a guy who's usually like orchestrating the dates and planning them and things like that, I think we should go out of our way to make sure that they're not uncomfortable with anything that's going on. And I feel like it's not too hard to do that. It's not hard to make people not feel uncomfortable. My mantra, I guess you could say, or logic is, it's always better for people to wish that you had done something than you to do something and then wish you hadn't. I'm not just talking about like more intense things or sexual things. I'm talking about like anything, like even just having your arm around them. It's better for them to wish that you had done that than for you to like just go ahead and do that and then be uncomfortable with it. And that goes for anything. You just don't want to make people uncomfortable. And that's always been something that I've strived to do. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable. And I hope that I've done a decent job at doing that. Because I think that's the great thing about love and things like that, is that, I mean, the great thing about love is that you feel this way about a person and they feel that way about you. It's not about like if it wouldn't mean the same thing if you were forcing someone to do that, or if you were making them uncomfortable. So I think that's my advice there, is just do everything you can to show that you're being respectful and don't make people uncomfortable. All right, so getting my call was definitely an interesting time. I was in college. It was my second semester of college. My family had just like finalized plans to move to Arizona. And I remember not thinking too much about it because, you know, I was in college at this point. I knew I wasn't going to be living with them. But they had just finalized their plans to do that. Like, they bought a house and they were getting ready to move there. They hadn't moved yet. And then I got my call and I was like wondering what it was going to be. And I opened it up and it's the Arizona Tempe mission, which I thought said Arizona Temple mission, which was confusing enough. And then I realized it was Tempe and it was in Arizona. And I remember my parents being like, what? what did that just say? And I was always excited about it. I was, I am a firm believer that you're supposed to go where you're supposed to go. And I felt like, I think it was more than a coincidence that I ended up going there. I think there was lots of reasons why the Lord wanted me in Arizona. And so I was always excited about it. But it was cool to know that the call was taken up, I believe, to the stake president, who took it up to, I believe it went to the brethren, the Quorum of the 12, and they actually talked about it. I don't know what the process was, but it ended up being that they made the decision that my mission would be in Arizona, which I think is really cool, because I've heard of other stories where people were called to a place that they were born, or they were called to a place where their family was moving, and they changed the mission. And it would have been so easy for them to just do that, to just be like, you're actually assigned to serve in this mission. But the fact that they thought about it in some way, whatever they did, whether they prayed about it or just thought about it, and then got back and said, that's the mission he needs to serve, just further increases my testimony that I went where I was supposed to go. Okay, so as excited as I was about going on a mission, the beginning was not super easy for me. In fact, it was pretty awful. I mean, the MTC was great. I had great experiences there, just awesome, life-changing experiences, sacred experiences that I'd rather not share over the camera, but just things that are really just have given me a solid testimony. So the MTC was really cool. Then I get out to the field, and it's awful. I mean, you're just with this dude all the time who I definitely didn't have a great attitude. I love him now. My companion is Elder Headland, Adam. He just had a birthday, and he's here in Provo. I want to be hanging out with him more than I am. But at the time, we did not see eye to eye. He had just graduated high school, I did a year college, so I guess for some reason I felt like I had an advantage or something, which wasn't even true, because he did know how to be a good missionary, and we were just working on it together, and I was a punk a lot of the times. And I was just miserable. It was the first time in my life where I had to do something really hard, I guess. I didn't really have to do really hard things before that. And it just seemed so long. When I was out there, I was like, 2 years, this literally seems like it's never going to end ever. And I mean, it was just awful. I just remember wanting to be hit by a car. I was like, just hit me with a car, because then I can go home. Because I knew I wasn't going to go home early. That was never an option, unless I was hit by a car. And so that was the only way out, because it just seemed like it was going on forever. My area at first was really tough. I didn't have a good attitude. I wasn't humble. This is kind of making me humble, I guess you could say. But yeah, I just missed my family. I didn't realize how good things were. I missed the freedom that I had before of being in a band ride, we did cool things, or being able to date, not being able to do any of those things was tough, especially with music. I missed just all of those things. But it's good because, and I know people say this a lot, but when you're stripped away of all those comforts, you really have nothing to turn to but the Lord. And so that's a lesson that I definitely needed to learn. In the beginning, it was just really rough. Okay, so what really changed my perspective and attitude was getting to know the people and doing what I was actually supposed to be doing there, which was serving the people. I mean, because you're not there for you. I mean, you benefit a lot from it, right? I'm a way different person now than I was on the mission, or even before, but you're not there for that. You're not there for you. You're there to help people. And so it took me a while to learn that. I mean, it really did. But it just happened as you really get ingrained in their lives. And then that becomes your emotions, right? Before, your emotions were based on you. You're like, I'm sad because I want food, or I want to be home, or watch Netflix. Is Netflix still around? I hope so. But anyways, there's just your emotions are still based on selfish things. And it's when you get ingrained in these other people's lives and you see their hopes and disappointments, and that's where your emotions become based on. And so I was really happy when they were doing well. I was really sad when they weren't doing well. And it was just my emotions were connected to these people. And I remember I'll share one story in particular where we were teaching a little girl, and her mom was having a rough time. Wasn't very active in the church, was making some poor choices. Because of that, they were facing some serious consequences in terms of losing their house. And I didn't know what we could do, but I just this little girl was the sweetest thing, and she just wanted to get baptized really bad. She was 9, I think, and yeah, just super innocent. And the things that she was having to go through, it bothered me a lot. And I remember just like that day we went there, I saw how bad the situation was. I was angry, and I just didn't know what to even do. And so I just wanted to like go back to our apartment and just be sad. Like I knew that was an option, and just be bitter about everything, right? Because you can think about like all the children that are suffering. You can think about all the other people that are just having really rough lives and always have had rough lives. And it's like, where is God in that? And I was thinking about those things. And so I kind of just kept thinking about that. And then I decided to actually use faith for once. And I said a prayer, and I just focused. I just said, Heavenly Father, I don't understand all of these things that are going on. I don't understand all of these problems that are happening in the world, why so many children suffer, why there is so much suffering, but I just hope that you'll take care of this little girl. I just hope that you'll make sure she's okay. And, I mean, what ended up happening is, like that same week, the bishop in the ward just got a very overwhelming feeling that he needed to take care of the girl, and he reached out and he found that she had some parents or grandparents that were close by, and they actually ended up like picking her up and taking care of her. And so I mean, that was obviously a direct answer to the prayer, but the thing that stuck with me more was the feeling that I got as I was praying. I mean, it was just peaceful doesn't describe it. Satisfying doesn't describe it. It was just an overwhelming feeling of understanding and empathy as well, like feeling that God not only understood, but that he like had the situation under control. I guess you could say it was security. Like it felt like he had that girl like just in his arms, like everything was going to be fine and that everything is going to work out, and that he was very aware of the situation. And I just remember that feeling stuck with me more than the direct answer of the prayer. It was more, that was the answer to the prayer to me, is that spirit reaching out to me and letting me know that things were under control. And I was blessed to have a lot of experiences like that. But loving the people is definitely something that really caused me, I guess, to really start getting my head in the game there. I was blessed to just know so many good people that just wanted to better their lives. And they're going through rough things. Nobody that I taught on my mission is in a perfect place right now. They're all struggling with something, just like me, just like everybody is. But working with them was great, and that's what made me want to be a good missionary. That's what made me want to stay there. So the mission was definitely one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I mean, probably the best thing. But at the same time, it was the hardest for sure. And like I talked about, the beginnings were really rough. Then I got into a period where I felt like I was getting the hang of it. I really enjoyed it. It was tough, but life goes on. You get used to it. I had opportunities to be in leadership and things like that, and so that made me feel like I was doing the right thing. And then I just hit a period of time where I just had a really, really bad anxiety. Like, it was just awful. To the point where I would get like a thought about like something going wrong, like really wrong, like a really negative thought that probably wasn't even rational or realistic, but like it wouldn't go away. And it would affect the way that I feel, and so it would get in the way of me being able to focus, and it would just be there all the time. Like, I would be riding my bike, and I would just have these terrifying thoughts of, like, what if this happens, or what if this happens to me? And it was awful, because I was just getting past the point of being selfish and starting to care about other people, but all these things were selfish, right? They were like, what if this happens to me? What if this happens to me? And I couldn't stop it, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't recognize it as anxiety, and so I just didn't know what was happening to me. And, it eventually spun into some severe depression because I didn't know what was going on, and I felt like, all these things kept happening. I was like, these things they're going to happen, or my life's going to be, just ruined for all these different reasons, and I was just so convinced of that, and there was so much evidence, it seemed like to me, that was just around, that was just everywhere, and so I was just terrified that my life was going to be ruined, and that's why it's meaningful to me as I've gotten past that here, and here I am now in a much better place. And so as I'm talking to primarily my kids, my grandkids, I just just the fact that you guys are alive and watching this, if that's happening, if you are, I mean, it just means a lot to me, because there was a time where I just felt like I wasn't going to be able to do any of that, and that my life was just going to be ruined. But, here we are. the Lord is good. Here I am, at least now, in a much better place because of the help that he's given. Because again, that really taught me to be driven to my knees, right? Like I was in a place where I had no hope at all. And that taught me a really important lesson. I mean, because I honestly had nothing. Like it's hard to describe. The depression was so real, and I just felt like there was no hope for any of this stuff. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. So I had nothing to do but just turn to the Lord. And it just started with hope. Like it started with the hope that one day these experiences will help me in the future. Like I'll be able to have greater empathy for people that are struggling with these things. And I mean, just that thought of like, I'm doing this for someone else, or I'm doing this for like a greater purpose, that's what started to get me through it. Because that connected me to the Savior. Because I mean, he's the one that did that a million times more. He felt everything I was feeling, plus like everybody else's stuff. And it just connected me to him that like, okay, I can do this if I'm doing it for someone else. And so I just have faith that it was going to be for something else. Just like the Savior when he was like through way more pain than any of us have ever experienced. So just being able to experience that in a slight degree, just a percentage, just like 0.1% probably of like anything that he experienced. But just to be connected with him in that way, that's what got me through it. And other experiences, just tender mercies of the Lord showing me that he was there. My mom, she'd been through it, and so she was able to help me out in a way that no one else could. And so that was definitely a good experience. And as I overcame that, it not only helped me connect with people on my mission that were suffering in those ways, but since I've been home, I've just had, relationships and developments where I just feel like I'm able to be useful and helpful because of those experiences. I guess overall, one of the most important things I learned on my mission was at work. There were times where I didn't want to do it. Throughout the whole thing, where like biking was hard. Arizona is super hot. It gets to be 120 degrees there in the summer. And it's just, no one wants to talk to you sometimes as a missionary. Lots of times as a missionary, no one wants to talk to you. Or they feel bad for you and they'll maybe give you like 2 seconds, but they're not really serious. And it's just, it's tough to be a missionary. But you just got to keep going. You just got to keep knocking on doors. We were in a technology mission. And so we had the opportunity to like really start using like things like iPads and smartphones and things like that to start sharing the gospel with people over Facebook, over social media. And that worked a lot. But again, like there's still like always an element of physical work. Like I remember just biking and just being like, I just need to get through the day. I just need to get through this hour. I just need to get until I get to drink a drinking fountain again, But that really taught me like I can do those things. Like I can do hard things. Because there were times where I didn't want to do any of that, but I just kept going. It's because I love the Savior, I love the people, and I loved who I was becoming because of it. And I became a better person, for sure, because of it. Well, I know that was just a brief snippet of like kind of some life experiences / like growing up. I do hope that whether it's my kids or my grandkids, that I have lots more time to share with you more personal experiences and who I was as a kid, the mistakes that I've made, the mistakes that I've learned from. I hope that I continue to be better and have a lot more stories. I mean, I'm young, but I feel like I have had a good life. I feel like I've done a lot of cool things that other people haven't had the opportunity to do. I mean, standing on a stage, having tons of people cheer for you. I've had lots of opportunities like that. Being able to win first place in a swimming race. I mean, that was awesome. Being able to be on top of mountains, like climbing on mountains. Like I wish I had, I guess, put more thought into what I would share with some of those experiences. Because there are so many things that I've done where there's just moments where I just felt like I was alive. And I'm glad that I've had those moments so far in my life. But of all things, the most thing that I hold dearly is my testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I've always known that it was important, but I mean, it wasn't until my mission where I learned what the doctrine of Christ is: faith, repentance, baptism, receiving the gift of the Holy Ghost, enduring to the end. Those principles of the gospel, I mean, the whole point of this whole thing is to make you better. And it's not just you alone. When you're doing those things, you're accessing grace. You're accessing the power of what happened because Christ performed the atonement. I mean, it's literally entering into your life and it's making you a better man. It's making you more like Christ. And that's what happened for me. That's what I want to keep happening. I mean, I have days that aren't great, where, you know, I know I could be doing better things with my time. But I know that, you know, I love the Savior. I mean, he just went through so much to make this possible. We got to take it for granted. I mean, we got to take advantage of that, because it's just laid out for us. It's in the scriptures. I wish that I had known. I mean, I remember when I first read the doctrine of Christ and 3rd Nephi and 2nd Nephi 31, I was just like, this has been in here the whole time? Like, what? Like, it's like a roadmap to success in life. You're going to have a happy life if you're living those steps, because you're becoming a more Christ-like person. It's going to be tough, of course. You're going to have humbling experiences, and I know that, you know, life is not going to continue to be super easy. Like, I know that I'll have rough times ahead, but I know that the Savior's real. Heavenly Father's real. I mean, we are His children. I'm a son of God. That's a huge thing. And I don't want to take that for granted. I want to become what I can become because of that. I know that I have potential there, and I just want to raise my kids and grandkids knowing that there's such a bigger purpose to this life thing than us just being here randomly. Our relationships, our connections, they're divinely inspired. And no matter where, like, my life goes, like who I end up marrying, or what career path I take, if I keep the gospel at the center of my life, I know that things will work out. And I pray that I'm able to do that and be a good example for the future generations, because my parents' righteous example now has set me on the path, which can have just an effect on, I mean, thousands. And so it's a big deal. But I know that the gospel's true. I know that.